Action.
Good day, my name is Nosabatha Madayizana, a former IT student at the University of the Free State, a musician, artist, songwriter, instrumentalist, and music coach. Today, this is our masterclass where we'll discuss what music is, the differences between a musician, an artist, and a singer. We'll talk about identity and the role that music plays in defining identity. We'll talk about how my musical journey has come to where it is today. Then I will just teach you how to use your voice effectively, from breathing exercises to posture, to phrases, to the importance of scales. And also I will leave you with one final word. Thank you. So what is music? There's so many interpretations of what music is. Many articles and many authors would define music as vocal and instrumental sound combined in such a way to produce a beauty of form, beauty of harmony, and emotion. Some would identify it as a form of art that uses sound in an organized time. Other people would define music as a combination of silence and sound in an organized fashion. There's so many ways, so many interpretations of what music is. And it's quite challenging to actually define what it is, but we know how we feel when we hear it. We know how we feel when we sit down and listen to it, when we sit on an audience, as an audience, and just sit in awe. But the challenging part is identifying what it is. Great musicians have always defined, look way beyond what music is. They always say it's such a passionate connection to them. All right. John Coltrane, the late John Coltrane, would identify music as a spiritual expression of what he is. He says, it's my faith, my knowledge, my being. When you begin to see the possibilities of music, your desire to do something good for people, to help humanity free itself from its hang-ups, I want to speak to those people. The late Ray Charles would say, music is nothing separate from me. It is me. You'd have to remove the music surgically. Music to me is like breathing. I don't get tired of breathing. I don't get tired of music. As you can see, these musicians, these great musicians, don't ordinarily define what music is. It's part of them. It's who they are. To me, music is my expression. It's my spiritual expression. It's my lifestyle. It's who I am. It does not matter how you define it. What matters is that what it does to you, how it makes you feel, how it resonates with you. Whatever you define music to be is what it is. Talk about the differences between an artist, a musician, and a singer. All right, let's start with what an artist is. So you hear the word artist. That's a term that you use to describe a person who draws or paints artwork, right? But now over the years, the term has been used on a broader aspect. So an artist could now be a dancer. An author of a book could consider themselves an artist. A music director in a play could consider themselves an artist. But let's bring it back home. What's an artist according to music? An artist is someone who is able to contribute to a musical creation. Someone who does not necessarily create the music, but also plays an integral part in contributing to the final product, right? For example, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Usher, Amanda Black. Those people would be considered as artists. Those people could be categorized as artists. All right. Then we go to musicians. Who are musicians? Musicians are people, or a musician is someone who plays an instrument, who creates music and produces music and performs it. So, for example, the late great Hugh Masekela, the late great Jonas Ngwangwa, who else? Bongile Kumalo, the late Moses Mulelekwa. Those people would be categorized as musicians. Those people would be identified as musicians. Then you'd get singers. Singers are people who mold themselves or shape themselves or shape their sounds in such a way that they accommodate the sound or the genre they're singing. So this is your ordinary person. This is you singing in the shower to Beyonce's songs. This is us singing to Rihanna songs. This is us singing to Amanda Black songs, Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus songs. Anyone can be a singer. We are all singers, actually. So what we need to know is that musicians can be artists, right? But artists aren't necessarily musicians. What do I mean by that? An artist doesn't necessarily produce music, doesn't necessarily create music, all right? However, a musician who is an artist, musician who is, for example, Ed Sheeran, all right, a creator of music, can play instruments, can produce songs, can create songs. Okay? So that's what you need to know, that artists can be musicians, but musicians cannot necessarily be artists. To that other side. Yeah. Musicians can be artists, but artists don't necessarily become musicians. All right? Singers can be artists, but singers don't necessarily become musicians. Singers can sing and contribute to a musical creation, but that does not necessarily mean that they can play an instrument and create their own sound. All right? So next time you hear of these different terms, now you have a clear understanding of what it means. So when someone says they're a musician, when someone says they're singers, when someone says they are artists, now you know what it truly means. Now you know what category they fall under. All right. When can you call yourself a musician? I remember one workshop I attended years back with conducted by one of my teachers, my musical teachers back in high school. He posed this question in class asking, when would you consider yourself a musician? I remember one classmate of mine answered, when you master the craft, when you master your instrument, that's when you would call yourself a musician. He said, no, not really. Not really. Next. Then another said, when you produce your own music, then you could call yourself a musician. He said, not really. So we were just sitting there trying to figure out when can one call themselves a musician? When can one call themselves a professional musician? And he said, the day you call yourself a musician, the day you call yourself a professional musician, is the day you get paid. Till this day, I was shocked at that answer. The day you consider yourself or you call yourself a professional musician is the day you get paid. But it makes sense. Think about it. Your craft would be considered so amazing that people would pay to come and see you. Your musical talent is that great that people would pay to be in your presence. People would pay to be in close proximity to you. People would pay to hear any other creation that you might have. Of course, you would be considered a professional in that sense. Yes, when you create your own stuff, you're considered a musician. Yes, when you've mastered your instrument, you are considered a musician. But you've truly made it once people pay to see you. And till this day, that's what I resonate with. Till this day, I've taken that word, and that is what I've worked towards, and that is what I continue to work towards. That people appreciate my talent so much that they would pay to see it, pay to listen to it over and over and over again. That's what we're working towards as musicians. That's what we're working towards as people with the born talent. All right. Are musicians born or made? I've heard this question so many times. Are musicians born or made? There's a book by Robert Jordanes called Music, the Brain, the Ecstasy, where he touches on this topic. There's a quote he says there. He says, an exceptional composer must have superb neurology for music, high overall IQ, thorough training, limitless encouragement, and the right kind of personality. What does he mean? What he means is that to be a great musician, you have to be born with the necessary talent. Now, one would say, but I don't have the talent. I wasn't born with the talent. I can't sing. So, what do you mean talent? Believe it or not, everyone is born with a musical aptitude. When I say musical aptitude, I mean a natural musical ability. We're all born with it. I know some people don't believe me at all, but we are all born with it. This is where it differs with each person. Your musical aptitude is not the same as the next one's. Your musical aptitude is not the same. It's not the same with anyone. We all are gifted with a certain level of musical aptitude. We're all born with a certain level of musical ability. But for us to be great, there's a level of training and molding that has to be done in order to make you exceptional, in order to make you great. All right? So firstly, you have to identify the level of musical ability you have. For example, let's say I have a lower aptitude compared to, let's say, Sarah. All right? Sarah has a larger aptitude or a larger musical ability. Now, for me to be great, it means, or rather for me to get to her level, it means that I will have to work 2 times or 3 times or 4 times harder to reach the level of exception or to reach the level of greatness. Whereas Sarah, on the other hand, will just work maybe twice as hard, or just half the amount for her to be great. This is something that we all struggle with as musicians. You would get a lot of musicians who lose hope once they see that some people don't actually work as hard. to get to that greatness compared to them. But what I need you to know is that we are not all the same. We are all unique. And we need to bask in our uniqueness. We need to bask in that, because that's what makes us great. Don't look at what someone else needs to do, or the work that they need to do, or the molding that has to happen to them. Rather focus on your molding. Rather focus on your talent and how to nurture it. You see, that's where the nature versus nurture philosophy comes in. All right? You have a natural ability, but in order for you to be great, you have to nurture it. All right? You have to water it. Yeah. You have to feed it through what? Through training, through theory, through history of the music, through the encouragement of people around you. All right? That's how that philosophy works. Nature versus nurture. Now, if we go back to the question, are musicians born or made? Well, it's simple. They're born and made. We're all given a talent. But talent alone is not enough. Yes, it's the foundation, but you need to build on that foundation. And that's something that we need to work towards as musicians, as artists, as content creators, as people in general. You work with a foundation and you build on it. Music as an identity.